Welcome to Horrid and Vicious, a true crime podcast. I'm Coda.
And I'm Candy.
And this is episode 9, Elisabeth Fritzl, aka the girl in the basement.
So, as this implies from the title, this does, one of our trigger warnings here is abduction/imprisonment. And then I have a lot of trigger warnings on this one, actually. There's also incest, abuse in several forms, like pretty much all the kinds. So sexual abuse, mental abuse, physical abuse, sexual assault, obviously, assault resulting in pregnancy, infant death/negligence resulting in death, and mentions of murder. I didn't fully include the stuff about that, but basically the guy who, I didn't really write all of it down, but the guy who is responsible for the stuff in this case, there are some like murders that they think he might have committed, but not proven. So I didn't really include them because they're not proven, and this isn't really that story. It's about other stuff, but there's the potential that he like raped and murdered other women.
Gross, disgusting, burn him.
Yeah, he's really terrible. To
I
get
can
started,
tell
there's
that he's really terrible.
there's like a Lifetime special on Hulu called The Girl in the Basement, so that's why that's kind of what this case is known as. But it's based on this story, but they did change it a little bit. So they have it like set in America, even though this took place in Austria. And then it's also toned down pretty heavily from what actually happened, which I actually saw that special first. So then that was what made me like, I was like, wait, let me do this story real quick. And then I looked into the real story and I was like, oh, wow. Like it's even worse. So I do think the special was pretty good though. Not good, but like they did it was interesting. It had my attention for sure. But the real story is a lot worse, it turns out. So with that stuff out of the way, the trigger warnings and all that, here's the actual story of what happened. Elisabeth Fritzl was born on April 6th, 1966, to parents Josef and Rosemarie Fritzl in Amstetten, Austria. She had 3 older siblings named Ulrika, Rosemarie after their mother, and Harold, and then 3 younger siblings born after her named Josef Jr., Gabrielle, and Doris. So she was the middle child out of all of them. Lots of siblings.
Quite a few children. Yeah. I was about to say, that's
lot.
like, what, 7 kids in total?
Yeah, that's crazy, actually. That's it's 7.
I
didn't count that. And the crazy thing is that the number 7 comes up later. It also comes up a little bit right now. In 1977, there's some more 7s for you. So when Elisabeth was only 11, her father began to sexually abuse her. And then he also kind of grew up, obviously, she was born in the 60s, and her dad kind of grew up in the, like, Nazi era sort of thing. So he blames that for kind of how his strictness was, if that makes sense. Like, he was also, like, physically abusive to his children and would hit them and things like that. And with all that going on, unsurprisingly, she became more and more rebellious as she got older. And she even as a teenager, like, ran away from home on at least one occasion. The one that I know for certain is in 1983, where she tried to run away, but she was brought home by police. And her father, Josef, like I said, he was super strict, so he hated that she did not want to follow his rules, and he basically could not stand watching her live her own life. So on August 28th, 1984, when Elisabeth was 18 years old, her father asked her to help him carry a door downstairs to their basement, where he had kind of made this bunker of sorts, and she helped him carry it down, and she held it in place as he secured it to the frame. And as soon as it was completed, he covered her face with an ether-soaked towel until she was unconscious, and then he closed her in the room with the newly placed door. So he had her carry down the door that he used to seal her in.
That is terrible.
It's just
We're already off to a terrible,
I know.
Terrible
This
start.
is just the beginning. Like,
I do have a question, though.
Yeah, what's up?
Was he an actual Nazi?
I don't
Or
believe
was
so.
it because of the Nazis?
No,
that
I
he
think it's
was that
because
way?
he grew up in that time period and like his family was out of there, but I can't confirm that. I don't know.
Okay, it's not confirmed or
But like
denied
his
whether he
mom was
a
super
Nazi.
strict. It's weird. So he goes on later and he says that originally he's like, my mother was the best woman in the world, and then later on he's like, she was terrible and she would beat me and stuff, and it's like, you beat your own kids and like sexually assaulted your daughter.
Exactly. So, like, why are you mad? Like, you're like, my mom beat me,
Yeah.
so I did even worse things to my kids.
Yeah, in the
Like, what?
in the special they don't talk about the assault before he put her in the basement, so it's like even more out of the blue in the special. But the special is not as intensive. It is, bad, but
Right.
pretty soon after her mother filed the missing persons report, 'cause she's like, oh my god, my daughter who is freshly 18 is gone. Like, she's tried to run away before. I'm worried about her. But nobody checked the basement of their own family home because they didn't think to, like it did not cross their minds. And
Right.
I mean, they didn't know how big of a thing he had down there. Like, he did have permissions to like have a basement, like he had built this stuff, but it wasn't supposed to be, I guess, as big as it was or something. I don't know. It's kind of confusing the way that they said that, but basically nobody checked down there. Nobody thought to. And after a month, Josef gave a letter to police that was postmarked to be from another city in Austria and claimed like that it was from Elisabeth. And it kind of looked like it was like somebody had dictated what she was supposed to write, but it wasn't her handwriting, sort of thing. And they didn't really, know what to think. She had tried to run away before. So this letter says that she ran away and says like not to look for her because if they try to look for her, she's going to flee the country. And then he tells the police, he's like, she wants to join some cult. So that must be what she did. She ran off to join this cult.
Him basically having a cult in his house.
Him. Literally. But
Like,
with this, like, the case went cold because there was no evidence showing where she could have gone. There's
Right.
no way to
Right.
like scent track her somewhere or something. She didn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
So they don't have any way to, they have no evidence showing where she could have gone because she didn't go anywhere. So
She was in the basement.
they're not expecting her to be down there,
That's so terrible. Imagine, like,
Yeah.
your mom is panicking looking for you. She could probably hear her mom calling
Well,
her name from
and
where
then
she
when
was
it
in the
first
basement.
happened,
That is so
I don't know
terrible.
that she could because her mom, I think that it was like enough to where they couldn't like hear like that because he like insulated it to an extent, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Like,
yeah.
because he had been actually, he had made the plans at least like a year in advance because he had like been making this cellar sort of thing. It's really weird.
Right.
But Elisabeth was held captive in that cellar for 24 years.
What?
So she was down there for a very, very long time.
That
because
is
of this,
so
and
damaging
nobody knew.
to her psyche. Like, even if her father wasn't like a shitty person doing shitty things to her, that is still just so damaging.
Well, and
to
I
the
imagine
human
like
psyche.
for the first like day at least, she's probably like, he's not actually going to keep me down here. Because,
Right.
She's lived 18 years and he may have been like abusive, but he had never trapped her before or any of her siblings.
Right.
So I imagine at least for the first day or a couple of days, she was probably like, he's probably going to let me out soon, right?
Yeah.
But, at some point, she probably gave up hope. And it's just heartbreaking to think about, like,
And it's just
that.
so damaging for her to be stuck in this one spot for 24 years with no other outside interaction except for, I'm assuming, him.
Well, the minimum that he would visit was 3 times a week, but most of the time he was coming down, like, every single day. And he would, see her, give her food, and sexually assault her while she was there.
Gross.
And he would go
That's
down
so
to the
gross.
basement starting at around 9 a.m. And his family believed that he was down there working on these plans for machines that he sold. So they thought it was true, and they left him to his devices with that. And any noises that people heard from under the floor were explained away as issues with the pipes or heating system. So they didn't hear, like, words or anything. So obviously, like, there wasn't enough, or it wasn't, like, I don't know how to explain this the best way, but it wasn't, like, thin enough for them to, like, hear her being like, help, help, or something. But they could sometimes hear some noises, but it was easy for him to explain them away. So it didn't sound like a person.
This guy is disgusting.
Yeah. It gets worse. So
no.
This is so sad. The years of unprotected rape led to Elisabeth giving birth to her first child on August 30th of 1988. It was a girl, and she named her Kirsten. And Elisabeth herself was 22 years old, so it was just over 4 years since her imprisonment had begun. And she was terrified in this dingy basement, and all he had given her was some disinfectant, a pair of scissors, and a 60s self-help pregnancy book to help her through it.
What the fuck?
And I don't think he was even there for this one, at least. I know he was there for some of... There's more, mind you. She had several children. And I think he was there for some of the birds, but I don't think he was there for this one, at the very least. And despite all of this and how scared she must have been, and, like, only having that, like, bare minimum things to help. Not even the bare minimum, less than the bare minimum. Not even the bare minimum of things to help.
Medical attention is the bare minimum. And she did not receive that. She could have gotten sepsis and died so easily.
Yeah. Despite this, she did manage to birth and care for the first of her many children that she would have in the basement. On February 1st of 1990, she had another child, a son named Stefan. And then another 2 years later, on August 29th, 1992, she had a daughter named Lisa. And 2 more years later, on February 26th, 1994, a daughter named Monica. Lisa and Monica were both removed as infants and taken upstairs, where Josef left them on his own doorstep with notes that he made Elisabeth write, claiming that she was still living elsewhere in her cult and was leaving the children with her family because she couldn't care for them. So then he would have his grandchildren that were also his children. And he raised them with his wife, Rosemarie. And they were approved by the local authorities to be the foster parents for their grandchildren because they didn't know where the mother was. So yeah, and he didn't, of course, tell them that their mother was in the basement beneath them. So these children were growing up unknowingly above their mother and their other siblings.
What the fuck?
So he also, of course, like I said, he was very strict and beat his kids. So he did also do that while raising his grandchildren.
This is making me nauseous.
It's really bad.
It's so gross. It's terrible. This is a terrible case.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry.
Don't be. This is the whole point. Like, the whole point is to talk about stuff like this, but this is, like, really fucked up.
There's more.
I know.
On April 26th, 1996, Elisabeth gave birth to twins, who she named Michael and Alexander. But Michael was not doing well, and within just like a few minutes or hours after he was born, he started having breathing difficulties, and he passed after less than 3 days, with Elisabeth holding him and begging her father to help the baby.
Oh.
And Josef basically was like, I thought that he would power through it.
What?
Because all the other children made it through.
It's a newborn baby.
So when Michael didn't survive, Josef cremated him in an incinerator.
What the fuck?
And then the other twin, Alexander, lived down there in the cellar for 15 months before Josef actually ended up taking him upstairs to grow up there as well. So him and his 2 older siblings did. And then on December 16th, 2002, Elisabeth gave birth to her 7th child, a boy named Felix, and was still trapped in the basement, of course. Felix did not.
7 kids.
Yeah, 7 again. That was what I meant when I said the number 7 would come up later. Felix did not get taken up to be raised. upstairs. And it was kind of a tough thing where it was like her children were her only company other than her abusive father. And some things said that sometimes he might have sexually abused her, like, in front of them to, like, humiliate her and stuff, which is so gross. I mean, it's already gross, but extra gross. And that he, like, made her watch porn and stuff.
Ew.
So just icky.
Very.
And then, like, these poor kids, like, they don't even know anything else, too. So there's his daughter who's, like, trapped down there. There's all these kids who don't know any better. And then it's like she was sad to see her babies go, but she also knew that even if he was, like, physically abusing them upstairs, it was better for them to be upstairs than in the basement.
Right.
Sort of thing. So it was such, like, a hard thing for her with that, too. And other than being locked away and sexually abused, the basement was horrible in tons of other ways, too, because there wasn't, like, proper insulation. So in the summers, the cellar was, like, unbearably hot. And when it rained, there were leaks all over the place. And Elisabeth had to try to maintain them with towels. Some of the walls were dirt, which at some point when Joseph was, like, they said allowing expansion because she was having a bunch of children. So they needed more space. To do the expansion, he made Elisabeth and the children dig it out with their bare hands.
What the fuck?
Yeah. And then
what is wrong with this guy?
If they didn't behave how he wanted, he would punish them with, like, darkness and hunger. So he would turn the lights out and or refuse to bring them food for days at a time.
What the fuck?
And then he also would threaten to gas the chamber. And he also told them if they attempted to do anything to the cellar door that they would be electrocuted. It wasn't like a key door. It was like he had a code, like a keypad to get in. So it was, like, electrically done. But the police were able to disprove that he had the ability to gas them because there was no gas hooked up there. So he was just threatening them to make their lives full of fear.
Are you, like, how do you... That's your family. Like, I have family members.
Well, obviously he was a pretty terrible family member because
he
got his daughter pregnant with 7 children.
He's so gross. He's so icky.
I mean, and she's like, and I assume that he didn't give her anything more than the disinfectant and scissors and the book every time. So she probably only had those things for each pregnancy. It's honestly shocking that only one of the children died.
Yeah, yeah. It's honestly shocking that she was able to survive that. Like,
yeah, she survived
with the physical
giving birth
and mental trauma. That's terrible. And giving birth is so painful. Mm-hmm.
And, like,
poor girl.
Her father. Like,
her father needs to be burned. Just be burned in general. Just throw him in a fire. I know burning alive is one of the most painful things, if not the most painful thing a human being can experience, but I think he deserves it at this point.
Real. I mean, he is obviously a piece of shit. And a terrible father and a terrible grandfather.
You're saying that's so nice of you, actually. I feel like
I'm being generous.
There are so many words that could be used to describe him, and you are choosing the nicest ones.
Yeah, facts. Obviously, growing up in a cellar, being born and raised in a cellar, was not good for these children.
No, it's not good for children.
Yeah, so on April 19th, 2008, Kirsten, the oldest child, was now 19 at that time, and she suddenly fell unconscious. So 19 years she was raised in this. That's insane. So not just...
That's her
I mean, you think of
life.
the 24 years, like, that's terrible, Elisabeth being trapped in that. This girl was also raised in that for 19 years. That's crazy. But she fell unconscious very suddenly. And Elisabeth had to beg and plead with her father again. And she begged him to take Kirsten to a hospital. And thankfully, he agreed. And he had Elisabeth help him carry Kirsten out of the cellar. And then he locked Elisabeth back in. And he had an ambulance take Kirsten to the hospital. And he went to the hospital and he had a letter that he claimed was from Kirsten's mother, Elisabeth, of course, to show the doctor. And it was basically like giving her up and saying she needed help or whatever. But Kirsten was now in a coma and diagnosed with kidney failure.
Oh no, that's terrible.
To my knowledge, she did survive this. I didn't look super far into it, but I believe that she did eventually wake up and go back with her mother. But the medical staff did not trust Yosef's story. So they told the police, they were like, I don't know what he's talking about. He's saying that the mother's in a cult and isn't going to be there to help the child. We have no medical history for this girl. And the police start sending out these broadcasts asking for the mother to come forward to help because they need a medical history for this girl. And she's clearly like super fucking sick. And when Yosef was home, he did give them like a TV at some point, and Elisabeth was seeing this broadcast. And she was like, so please let me go to the hospital. Please, like, my daughter needs me. And Elisabeth and her 2 sons that were in the cellar with her, Stefan and Felix, were released from the cellar on April 26th, 2008. For Elisabeth, now age 42, it had been 24 years since she had left the home. And Stefan and Felix, now 18 and 5, had never been out of the basement before. Yosef brought Elisabeth to the hospital, claiming that her and her other children had just escaped from the religious sect that they were in, but they were really skeptical of him already. So the police were able to separate her from her father and detain them for more information. I saw one thing that did say the police might have been telling her, like, you're going to be charged for neglect because your daughter's this sick and stuff. And she was like, I'll tell you everything, as long as you can guarantee that I will never have to see my father again.
Period.
So
honestly,
she proceeded to tell them everything that happened to her. And she was finally free, and her father was arrested at age 73.
Oh my God.
This man was 73 by this time. This is an old-ass man.
And she's 42.
Yeah, 42.
That's her whole
Since
life.
she was
That's
18, she was imprisoned.
That's her whole entire fucking life. That's crazy.
Yeah, and I found one article that said that Elisabeth's hair was like completely white and a bunch of her teeth were falling out.
Well, yeah, so, she wasn't able to really take... She lived in a fucking basement for 24 years. So I guess like there was like a make-do bathroom thing that he had made, but it was like... Obviously, they weren't in good conditions. So she went through 6 pregnancies, because 2 of them were twins. But, like, giving birth to 7 children. Obviously, she was, like, super sick, probably. Yeah. And then, multiple articles talked about it, but her and her other children that were kept downstairs, they, obviously to this day even, they still have long-lasting eyesight issues from being in almost darkness, because even with like the lights that they did have some of the time, it's not comparable to being in the world on a regular basis and out of a basement. And then her older son, the 18-year-old Stefan, he was like hunched over because he was growing taller than the ceiling was, so he had issues walking properly because of that. That's terrible.
And to this day, I believe all of them are still receiving therapy, and they have lasting physical and mental traumas, including the children who lived upstairs, because they found out all of these lies that their grandfather/father had told them. And they also have to deal with anger issues and stuff because of his physical abuse and all of this. So I believe that Elisabeth is with her children, and they're like in a little village. They don't say the name of the village, which is, protecting their privacy and stuff. But it sounds like she is with her children. One thing I saw did say that her mother was with them, but then Elisabeth like kicked her out because she was like, you were complacent when he was abusing me before he like imprisoned me. So I don't really want to be near you, because if you hadn't been complacent before, he wouldn't have been able to do this.
Right.
Which is kind of fair.
It is. I would say that it's justified.
I understand it. Like, she clearly isn't, the person who did the abuse, but not stopping it also is bad. So if she's aware and she doesn't stop it, like...
Right. I don't know.
So she didn't know that her daughter was under there in the basement, but she did know that her daughter was getting abused before.
Right. And I mean, maybe it was because she herself was scared of what her husband would do in
Yeah.
retaliation to her, which I think is the reason that a lot of moms don't speak up. However, it is also commonplace for people to choose their partner over their children. I don't know. I really feel that it's hard to go and say, yeah, she, like, her mother
Yeah.
deserves this, this, and this, because I honestly can't say for sure, because
Yeah.
she was probably a victim of this man as well. Not to the extent that Elizabeth was, obviously, because that's just a whole nother level of disgusting and depraved
Yeah.
abuse.
Well, and I can't imagine,
behavior.
like, she's probably went through a lot during that time too, and like, she clearly cared about her daughter, so it's sad to think about, like, she has no idea where her daughter is, and then, like, her grandchildren show up on her doorstep and she feels like she has some connection there to her daughter, and then finding out
And
that her
little does
daughter
she
was
know.
like underneath her feet the whole time,
The entire time.
and that her grandchildren are actually, like, also the children of her husband. Like, her husband is the father of her grandchildren. That's weird.
Yeah.
And
I'm sure she
insane.
had to have her own several rounds of therapy.
Mhm.
Because that's something that's, like, I don't know, it's just crazy to me.
Yeah. So
This whole thing is disgusting.
incest is also illegal. So that was one of his charges.
Good.
So
It should be.
originally his lawyer's like, well, they did do DNA tests, so they have proof of the incest because they can prove all these children are yours and your daughter's. But they can't prove that it was rape, is what they're originally saying. And then the false imprisonment and stuff, they're like, oh, how are they going to prove it? All this stuff. And then it's like, dude, she's like sick. And like these kids are sick. And like, if you just look at the basement, I think you'll be able to tell. Like, which obviously they eventually take all this stuff. And while originally he's trying to avoid punishment, as they always do, they play like a video of Elisabeth in the courtroom because she said she never wanted to have to see her father again. So she did like a video testimony.
Yeah.
But apparently it turns out she was like hiding in, like, she was in a disguise in a thing. And when he found out about that and like saw her and they made eye contact, like, I don't know what, suddenly he felt empathy all of a sudden for the first time in 24 years. More than that, however old he is, 73 years. So he suddenly felt empathy. And after he made eye contact with her, he decided to plead guilty to all of the charges. So,
Woo-hoo.
I don't know. It was weird.
Probably would have been convicted anyway.
Yeah.
Like,
so he got several charges. So he got murder by negligence for Michael, the baby. He got enslavement / false imprisonment as well.
oh yeah.
He got both charges, actually. He got enslavement and false imprisonment. He got the incest charge, rape, and coercion. So he got a bunch of stuff.
He should have several of those each.
Yeah, facts. I'm
One
not sure if they did
Elizabeth
multiple.
And each child.
I mean,
they should have.
he got life in prison.
Well,
So
yeah.
he's not supposed to get out. Apparently there has been some stuff in the last few years where they're like trying to do these different appeals and stuff because he got diagnosed with dementia and it's kind of up in the air. He's been in a psychiatric detention facility instead of a regular prison. And then I guess he's trying, or like not him, but like his attorneys or somebody is trying to get him moved to a nursing home instead. And then it said some board approved him going to a regular prison, but then the people were like, no, we don't want him in a regular prison because he's got dementia and it's going to be terrible. And then everybody's like, we kind of want that.
Listen,
So
I mean,
he has dementia, and while it's super terrible when people that we love get that, I'm glad that he's suffering from it.
I was about to say, I have lost somebody who was very, 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 very near and dear to me to dementia. My boyfriend just lost somebody that was very, very near and dear to him to dementia. It is a terrible, terrible, awful disease. It is one of the worst diseases.
Which is why
that anybody can ever have.
I'm glad that this guy has it.
Yeah,
he's one of the most terrible people.
If anybody deserves something that terrible, it's this guy.
Yeah, and I saw something. I couldn't verify it, but there were people saying like that he was being treated badly in prison stuff too. So like between the dementia and the treatment that he's getting in prison, I think he's having a pretty shitty life. A lot of people, which is what I hope for.
In prison. Oh, excuse me, I'm yawning. A lot of people in prison are fathers, and a lot of people in prison don't like people who do things to kids. Mm-hmm. So yeah. I don't think there was ever a world where he would have had a good time in prison. I mean, you're not supposed to have a good time in prison, but like I don't think
this guy looks like a supervillain, by the way.
They always do, don't they?
He's because he's old as fuck in the pictures because he's 73 by the time he gets arrested. This man genuinely looks like a supervillain from a movie. Like, I'm gonna send you this picture real quick. But like, you're telling me that's not somebody from like Batman?
Oh my god, he does look like a villain.
He does.
You can see the evil in his eyes.
He looks crazy.
Those eye bags. You could literally put stuff in there. I could put my wallet in his eye bags.
This man, and he like...
My car keys would fit in his fucking eye bags.
God, and like, she was like... just a few years before this had her last child that he like... You know what
this
I mean.
is completely off topic, but the officers' faces, they look like they do not want to be near this man at all. Like, they know what he did, and
the way he's looking directly into the fucking camera is crazy. Yeah,
he is crazy. This whole thing is just terrible, and I'm glad that he got what he deserved and what was coming to him.
Yeah, also, I couldn't find, like, any pictures of Elisabeth as an adult, which is valid because I can understand not wanting your picture privacy taken after that. Mm-hmm. But there are some pictures of her when she was younger, and she was such a beautiful young girl.
Oh, she's beautiful.
She's gorgeous. I mean, she is like literally
gorgeous.
She looks like she could have been like a model. Like, she's beautiful, beautiful girl.
Gorgeous girl.
And it is so heartbreaking what he did to her.
That's so disgusting of him. I hope he burns and rots.
Me too.
Is he still alive? There's no fucking way
somebody
he's still
compared
alive.
him to the Grinch. Yeah, he is still alive. He's suffering from dementia.
The Grinch would never. He's still alive with dementia? I'm so pissed.
He does look
because
like the
here's
Grinch.
the thing.
The eyebrows.
Oh my god.
And the hair. He's got Grinch, like the silly little hair swoop.
The Grinch would never do some shit like that.
No, the Grinch only did stuff. The Grinch just didn't want to be near people. He was just like, ugh, I hate being near people. And then they wouldn't leave him alone. So he was like, fine, I'll ruin it.
This guy is fucking disgusting. Literally. I want to punch him.
He's
like,
terrible.
What is this whack-ass hairdo that he has?
I don't know. I guess that's how you do your hair when you're a fucking creep. I wouldn't know. I'm not a freak, so...
I mean, same. I can see where he's balding.
He is balding.
Normally, I don't make fun of people for things they can't control, but this guy is an exception.
No, it's okay to do it when they're bad people.
I know. That's the only people that I make fun of are the genuinely bad people.
Truly. That's how I feel.
Because they deserve it.
Fucking crazy. I genuinely, I'm shocked by this man. Every time I look at him,
he's fucking twacked.
So weird.
He's fucking twacked. That's the best way I can describe him. He's twacked.
Okay, this is so weird. I saw that comparing him to the Grinch, and then I scrolled down a little bit. All I Google searched was Elisabeth Fritzl, right? I scroll down a little bit. It starts showing me one of the One Direction members compared to the Grinch. What? I don't get it.
I mean, it's probably because the Grinch comparison.
I don't know why it showed up under Elisabeth Fritzl.
Why is this picture so... Oh, I forgot. The trial was in the 2000s. I was about to say, why is this so high quality? I'm so used to you doing, cases from forever ago.
It started forever ago. That's the thing.
It did start forever ago.
It started in the 80s. He held her for so long that it became recent.
I also just noticed that this is the first, survivor case.
That's what I was going to say. So I waited. I didn't say it at the beginning because I wanted it to be, a thing where you see. But she is still alive, to my knowledge. Everything I saw said that she was. Her and her children, other than the one that died as an infant, are living. Obviously, they're going through a lot of shit because of being imprisoned and stuff for a very long time.
Grinch-ass motherfucker.
Yeah, this piece of shit treating them terribly. But... They are all in therapy, getting better. I saw things talking about like how hard it was like adjusting at the same time as it's like hard for them to be in the normal lighting. It's also scary for them if somebody dims lights because it reminds them of that. And it's scary to have the door closed.
Right.
So that's, I mean, I can't imagine how hard it is to like just go through everyday life and have like just these things that are completely normal to me because I dim my lights when I'm like, oh, it's a little bright in here, you know?
Right.
And
or
like
I like to keep doors
or like
closed.
looking at the sun, like just going outside into the sunshine, like literally would have hurt them.
Yeah.
And I bet they're all pale as fuck. And I mean, I saw things that said that when they did get examined, they did go to the hospital after like he was arrested and everything, and the kids and Elisabeth like were examined. Mm-hmm. And for the most part, they were in okay health, other than obviously the one that had to be hospitalized. So, I mean, they were, I'm shocked that they were in okay health because...
Yeah, me too. Those are not good conditions.
Well, yeah, and I mean, at the very least, you would expect Elisabeth to be in very bad health, and she was said to be in okay health, considering. And I wouldn't expect that from somebody who went through 6 pregnancies and was imprisoned for 24 years and didn't see the sun for 24 years. Like...
So not only do they have these...
Obviously that stuff is what caused the liver failure in Kirsten.
Right.
Because...
And all of these things that caused a lot of mental scars for them have also caused a lot of really terrible physical issues because it is so detrimental for people to be in a space like that.
Well, and I also saw things, they said that Elisabeth, you know, she tried to teach the kids how to read and write and stuff, but that they might have had trouble with, like, talking.
Yeah, because they don't have anybody to talk to.
Well, yeah, the only person they would have had is their mother, so and then each other. So they might not have been able to talk very well. I'm not sure if that was correct, because I think I only saw it in, like, one article where they said that like, they might have just had their own kind of, like, sounds that they spoke with. But that is at the same time, Elisabeth did know how to talk. So I do feel like she would have taught them. It might have just been that they also made up their own words because they were kids. So,
but it is common for children that are in low interaction environments to struggle with things like that because they don't have other kids to learn from and other adults to learn from. They just have that one singular source, which would be their mom and then from their siblings, but they're not going to really learn from their siblings as much because their siblings are learning from their mom. Well, and I'm assuming that this guy did not talk to his kids.
I mean, none of them get, you know, any vaccines, so their immune systems by the time they get out of there, like, they probably have to stay in kind of bubbles for a long time if they still aren't, that is. Which, at this point, it's been over a decade, so hopefully they're doing a lot better. And obviously there's not that much info, like I said, on them now because privacy, these people deserve to just live their lives at this point. And I saw something say that Elisabeth might be married to somebody new now. I don't know if that's true. Again, it was just one thing. Regardless, I just hope that she's
out of that situation.
Yeah, I hope that she's doing better. I'm sure that she's going to be traumatized for the rest of her life. But I'm just glad that she's out now. And hopefully
you can go around your trauma, but it will always be there. So I'm glad that she's doing better for herself, and I hope that her and her children continue to heal. Yeah. Because this is just, I think...
I feel like it's such a hard thing because I almost feel like in her position, I don't know how I would feel. Like, it's such a conflicting thing having, they're your kids, but they're also a reminder of what happened.
Yep.
So I can't imagine how hard it is for her. Like, obviously, it's very hard for them. It's hard for everybody involved. But I do believe that she has the worst of it.
And she does. And I'm sure that she does have a certain...
And then she probably, even if she does feel like that reminder, then she also feels guilty for that, too. So there's, so many feelings from that, I bet.
Yeah. There's a lot of complicated feelings, and I think that it's really good that they chose to seek therapy because there's a lot of complex emotions when you're dealing with something like this case, where it's just so horrendous and disgusting that you have a hard time processing it as an outsider. So when you're actually in it, it can be even more difficult. So therapy is like the best way to go about it, because that's really the only way that you're going to be able to begin to unpack and work through those terrible, terrible, confusing, conflicting emotions.
Yeah, actually, I just looked at how long we've been recording for, and wow, this was a short one.
It is a little bit shorter. That's why I'm
like
trying to drag my words
so
out a
much
little bit.
happened. Like 24 years of shit happened. But I didn't get too many details, unfortunately. Like, obviously, and I feel like there's still quite a bit of detail here. It just was a very quick
I'm sure
one.
that there is more details. But you know what? If Elisabeth doesn't want it out there, then
and I could have strung it out and talked about, like, the potential victims that he might have had. Like I said, there are a couple women that they said he might have, like, raped some women and he might have murdered some women.
I believe it.
But none of those are proven to my knowledge. So they think he might have done
those
that.
Ones are,
but at the same
solved.
time, I don't know if he was necessarily a murderer. Because, like, obviously that one baby did pass away from negligence. But I also feel like he probably would have just killed her at that point.
Yeah,
so
I don't know.
Hard, but at the same time, maybe he killed other women because they weren't his child and he felt some weird sick version of familiarity.
I
don't know.
think that he had a plan for her and he was just waiting for her to be 18 so that he could execute it.
Yeah, and it sounds like
it sounds like
he actually was planning on releasing her and the children because he had made her write a letter the year before that he had given to, like, the mom and stuff, saying, like, and he would drive. He was giving letters from her this whole time, mind you, saying that she was from all these different places. He would drive to these other cities and then mail the letters. I forgot to say that. So he would drive to these other cities. So he would make Elisabeth write these letters. He would drive to these other cities and then he would mail them to his own house.
I will say the shitty thing about him having dementia is he's not going to be able to be questioned about anything ever again.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they did question him before, though.
As much as they possibly could, but, like, for his potential, like...
I mean, he pled guilty to his stuff. I don't know if he actually did other things. I think they maybe are just trying to find a way to
make him look even worse.
Well, I think they might just be trying to find a way to close those other cases because they want to close them.
That's true.
So they could just be trying to say, like, this guy was around. But at the same time, I don't know. It's hard to say.
Listen, if you can do something like everything that he did to his own child and
keep it a secret for more than 2 decades.
And keep it a secret for 24 years, then murder is not outside of the realm of possibility in my mind. I'm sorry. I want to argue, like, obviously murder is a terrible, terrible thing, and it's just brutish and just it's a very terrible thing. I think that this is a little bit worse.
Yeah, I forgot to say. So he might have been planning on releasing them because he had her write a letter that said that she was trying to leave the cult, but that it was going to take a little more time. So he might have been planning some kind of release where he was going to play the hero and say that he had rescued them from this cult that he kept claiming she was in.
I think that's the
So they think that's what he was going to do, and he tried to speed it up. That's what he tried to say, was that his daughter and these other children had just gotten out of this cult, and that's why they were suddenly there when Kirsten was in the hospital. Them. So it was one of those things where I think that it sounds like he might have already been planning to, which is still, like, crazy.
It is. But it's disgusting and it's crazy.
I think probably it wasn't that he wanted to let them go. It's probably that he knew he was getting older and wouldn't be able to take care of them down there. And then that he didn't really want the bodies to just rot in his basement when he got too old to care for them. That's probably more of what it was and less of a wanting to let them go thing.
Right.
So
I think that he definitely had a plan for her and just waited for his opportunity.
I don't remember what year they said, but sometime like a year or a couple years beforehand, he had gotten the approvals to build, like, a cellar.
It's premeditated.
So he was planning to make that. And
he was.
I don't think he was planning to make it and make this little bathroom and stuff unless he was planning on doing this already. So she was already rebellious, like, throughout her teen years. She had already run away from home, sort of thing. So I think that he was already planning it. Let me show you this picture of this, like, little bathroom in there. It's covered in these crime scene things. It's so sad.
Oh. Yeah. It's like, why is there carpet on the wall? Ew.
Yeah, I don't know. So there's like this carpeted, it's like a really thin little hallway between this other room and that.
Yeah.
And it's carpeted on the walls in that little hallway for some reason.
Wow.
And then that's like the bathroom that they had.
That's terrible.
And they didn't, I don't know if they had pictures of other parts. Let me pull it up again. Because I did see like some of the hallway.
Like, it's a tiny bathroom. And
oh my
for
God, they've got like a whole
people.
Well, so 3 of the kids went upstairs.
Oh, right. But still, for 4 people, that's your bathroom?
So I just pulled up. People have made like some, what's the word for this? Like layouts of it. They've like made diagrams. So I'm just sending these real quick. And I'm also going to post them, of course. But like it ends up becoming this bigger thing, I guess, where he made like these other rooms. But like you can see in the picture, like the halls are these tiny little hallways between each room.
Yeah, those are tiny.
And like I said, something said that he made them dig stuff out with their hands because they had like a dirt wall where they did that. So it wasn't always even as big as it was.
Right.
And again, no sunlight. Like, just, ugh.
Terrible.
It's so fucking gross.
It is.
And, like, she just has to find some little corner to give birth in every time.
Ugh.
Like.
That's awful.
Yeah, anyway. I mean, that's all I really have, though. I just can't even think about what they had to go through, and I'm just glad that they're out now and hopefully living much better lives.
I hope
and
so.
And recovering okay.
Yeah. I wish them all the positive vibes in their healing process. I don't know where I was going for that. I just hope that their healing process continues to go well for them. And I hope that they are able to find peace within themselves and
those kids are probably having such a hard time. I mean, a couple of them are grown now. I mean, all of them should be by now, I guess. But
you have to relearn everything.
Yeah, and then like
because everything they know is a lie,
and then, like,
pretty much.
Your own biology, like having that as your own constant reminder too.
Yeah,
that you are. Like, your father is also your grandfather. Like, that's such a horrible thing for them to have to go through.
It's a really, really terrible, terrible thing. Terrible. It's just terrible. I know I keep saying that, but that's just because it is, and I don't have any other.
It really is just terrible. Like,
I feel for them so much.
It is so heartbreaking. But
it is.
Yeah, I'll post the pictures that I found on our Instagram so that everybody can see that. And I hope the best for these people. Other than Yosef, obviously. Fuck that guy.
Yeah, why does he get to live so long with dementia? That's fucked up.
It's okay. Hopefully it sucks for him.
I know it does, because it's one of the worst things that can happen to a human being, in my opinion. And I think that it's well-deserved for everything that he's done. But, like, take him out already.
Literally, I hate this fucking guy.
Like, I don't mean to say it like that, but he's disgusting. And he's probably one of the most disgusting people we've covered on this podcast.
Like, they all do terrible things. This is just the way that he did it. And, like, doing this to your own family member, it's a different kind of sick.
It's all...
I mean, they're all sick.
Everything we cover is terrible. Yeah, this is just a different kind of terrible, and he's not only affected
I just can't imagine even, like, I
one
mean, obviously I can't
generation,
imagine
but
treating anybody
two.
that way, but, like, your own fucking kid.
Yeah, your own kid. And
Why you got Jimmy Neutron hair?
it's not even... Jimmy Neutron has luscious hair,
I'm
okay?
gonna
He
show
does
you.
not have any... Why does he look like that? Oh my god, that
Jimmy
smile.
Neutron right now. Yeah, he's like on a boat having the time of his life while his daughter's literally.
Ew. I'm sorry, it's making
the
my
ground.
skin crawl to look at him like that. I just
Dude,
want to
I'm
throw him
fucking
overboard.
sobbing.
I just want to throw him overboard. I don't know why looking at him makes me so violent.
Look at this.
Looking at him makes me feel so violent, bro. I don't know what
Oh
to
my
tell you.
God.
Like, maybe it's because I know what he's done.
Yeah, gross. Look how pretty she is in this picture.
Oh, she's beautiful. Her hair is
So
gorgeous.
I know, right?
I love that
He
hairstyle
ruined
so much.
everything because he's a piece of
I know,
shit.
that's why I need to throw him overboard of that boat. He's so disgusting.
Yeah. Anyway, that's all I've got for this episode.
Okay.
So, I suppose we'll just end it here unless you've got more to say. I feel like the only thing more we're gonna say is just how much we hate him. So
Yeah, that's really all I
pretty
have on
much
my
gotta
mind
stop.
is
Otherwise,
how
we're
much
just gonna say
I
the same
hope
things over and
that-
over.
I hope that Elizabeth and her children are thriving and living their best possible lives while he's rotting in prison.
All right, we'll see everybody next week.
See y'all next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.